Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we're going to talk about all the news that occurred over this past weekend with the D23 event, and as a result, all of the books that have really been moving in the market, because there's actually quite a lot of them. So in this video, we're going to kind of take a look at the market, break it all down for you guys, and talk about this idea of FOMO being dead, or perhaps FOMO not being dead, because I feel like there's been a lot of conversation in the community recently, people saying, oh, I don't think the MCU is moving the spec market like it once did, or I don't think people are FOMOing like they used to. And every time I hear people say that, I just think about this. Because there were definitely a lot of crazy sales out there. So in this video, we're going to break it all down. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps with the channel, doing those things I would appreciate. But let us get into this video here today. Now, I do want to go through just some of the highlights, talk about some of the main things that came out. And then at the end of the video, I think I want to also talk about, kind of how I feel like the market is moving and what books are overall responding. Because I think that there is basically a new sort of trend that's going on. So let's kind of talk about all the stuff that has been moving, and then we'll talk about that at the end of the video. So the first thing I want to kind of break down right here is, of course, this announcement that in Captain America New World Order, one of the villains that we're going to be getting is Tim Blake Nelson returning as the leader. And this is kind of really exciting news in my opinion. I mean, I've always been a fan of the leader. I've always been, hoping that we were going to see Tim Blake Nelson reprise the role. He's an incredible actor, but it was this announcement that really moved the needle a lot for Tales to Astonish number 63. Of course, if you guys know, Tales to Astonish number 63, that's the first full appearance of the leader. And you can see right here, if I just scroll through, I mean, I don't need to count, but basically since Saturday when we got the announcement, we're seeing about, 25, maybe almost 30 copies or so that actually sold off of eBay. And that is quite a lot for this particular book. Just on any given day, a normal day for this thing, maybe you see one or two at most, maybe you see a handful a week. And there are some massive sales here. I mean, definitely a book that had its correction from 2021, but definitely is starting to creep back up, where we see raw sales at 142. Here's a 4.5 sale at 275, which actually is going to be a record for that particular grade. And there were actually records all across many grades. You see a $600 sale for the 7.0. You see a slash price of 9.0. That was actually a record. I'll dig into that in a second. Here's a 6.5 that has slash price. Here was a 9.2 that went for $3,200. That is a record for this book at that particular grade. So all across like many different grades, here's a 6.0 that went for 515. Many different grades kind of set their all-time record. Of course, the all-time record for this book is a 9.6 pedigree that went for $5,700, during the height of the market. But we can see this 9.2 sale is in fact the record high at this particular grade. The 9.0 that also sold, I believe, is also the record high for this particular grade. Yes, you can see that it actually went for $1,800 here. The previous sale to that was $1,200. And then down here, you can see some of the other grades, the 6.5 that went for $430, kind of in line to some of the previous record sales for that thing. I think there was a 4.0, or excuse me, the 4.5 that went for $275. So that is a record at that particular grade. And that's one of the things that I think you're going to start to see with, books out there in the market. I mean, depending on like how much the comic book market has been speculating on a certain book or not speculating, that's really going to be the determining factor of whether or not we're going to be able to set record high prices, or you're going to be able to double your money overnight. Basically, you have to have these kind of shots in the darks, or whatever that you want to call them. I mean, I realize that people have been speccing on the leader for a little bit of time now, but generally speaking, it's not like everyone was thinking that we were going to get the announcement this particular weekend. And that's really why you're going to see books like that double overnight, versus when you get an announcement of Yelena Belova returning. I mean, obviously we all knew that that was going to happen. We've already seen her in multiple projects. So it's not like you're going to see Inhumans 5 spike to, $10,000 or whatever the case may be. But let's kind of continue on with the news and kind of go over some of the big winner books. I mean, I think Tales to Astonish 63 is definitely going to be one of the big books that you see on every single hot list this week. You might also see Tales to Astonish 62 and some other various leader books also get some interest, but I don't want to make this video an hour long, so let's kind of talk about some of the main highlights. Of course, we also got the Werewolf by Night trailer, which introduced Man-Thing, and really the big winner book for the Man-Thing character, I think, is actually going to be Man-Thing #1. I mean, it's interesting because we all know that Man-Thing Man-Thing's first appearance came in the Savage Tales #1. But this, of course, is a comic book magazine, and you can definitely tell that there is a bias towards the magazine format versus the comic book format. Even with the revelation that we have this character in the Werewolf by Night show, number of sales here for Savage Tales #1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sales. No, not even 5 sales, 4 sales. So there was only 4 FOMO buys, or if you compare that to Man-Thing #1, I mean, basically, let me just show you guys. I can just scroll through. You can see just how many sold Man-Thing books there were in the past couple days or so. And we definitely did have some record high sales. I think this 9.0 selling for $400 might have been a record here. There were definitely some other massive ones that went for sale here. Here's a 9.2 at $450. And if we go into GPA here and we look at the 9.8 grade, there actually was a sale that came off of the heels of this, $2,160 for this particular book. I think that actually was a heritage auction. Now, that isn't actually the record price for this particular book. The record price was $3,800 back in the height of the comic book market. But this is a book that has been trending down, and I think that sale coming off of this announcement is definitely sort of a stabilization for this particular book. But you can see at the 9.6, we did get record sales at $1,200. So, depending on the grade, depending on what sort of happened here at the 9.4 grade, you also saw a record high sale. So this Man-Thing #1 book definitely seemed to be the one that moved the most in the market. Additionally, we got some very strong sales for Marvel Spotlight #2, which of course is the first appearance of Werewolf by Night. I mean, for a time there was some hesitation with this book, I think, because a lot of people were thinking that Werewolf by Night might be the Jake Lopez version, but we actually got confirmation that it's going to be the Jack Russell version, and you saw this book move a lot. And if you go into GPA here, you can see, depending on what grade you're looking at, there actually were a lot of really strong sales, some record highs as well. There was a 9.2 sale that went for $2,500, not exactly the record high, but a stone's throw from the record high. So definitely a strong sale, just $100 shy of that. You had a $1,200 sale here at the 8.5 grade, which is the record high. You had an 830 sale at the 8.0 grade, which is, flirting with, previous record highs. And then you had sales here in, the 7.5, the 7.0. You also had a 6.5 sale, all setting record high prices across many of the different grades. Now, of course, the other big news that we got is the announcements of the Thunderbolts roster. The official roster that at least, Marvel came out with is that it's going to be Black Widow, Yelena Belova. It's going to be the Red Guardian, David Harbour's character. It's going to be Ghost, U.S. Agent Taskmaster. And then Contessa, of course, is probably going to be leading the team. And then Bucky, Winter Soldier, is going to be in the film. Now, not every single book in correspondence to every single character set record prices. There were a couple books that definitely were in front of the pack. And the first one I think that we have to talk about is this Avengers #43, first appearance of the Red Guardian. This is definitely a book that I think was sort of the winner book as far as the members of the team is concerned. And this is one of those cases like I was talking about where people weren't necessarily predicting that the Red Guardian was going to be a part of the team. I mean, other characters like Yelena Belova and U.S. Agent were already kind of known to be shoo-ins for the roster, but not necessarily the Red Guardian. And as a result, this is one of those books that really moved a lot in the market. Here we have a 9.4 that went for $1,549. That is definitely a record high sale for this particular book. And then there were some other really strong sales for a book that has been correcting quite a bit. At that 8.0 range, we got that kind of that $400 sale, which isn't necessarily the record high price, but it is definitely close. And you can also see just how many copies went for this thing. I mean, quite a few out there in the market. Definitely a book that has corrected quite a bit. But not only was that one kind of the winner book as far as books were concerned for, the Thunderbolts roster, the other one that I think is amazing is this one right here, Iron Man #219. This is the first appearance of the character Ghost. This is definitely a book that also sold quite a few copies. I mean, I'm just going to do a quick scroll for you guys, just so you guys can get the visual of it. But if we look up here, we can actually see that there was a 9.8 sale, slash price of $810. And if we go into GPA, we can see what that was. The price was actually $700, which is the record high price for this particular book at that particular grade, which is definitely a very strong showing for this book that we're getting record high prices in this current market. Additionally, the 9.4 went for $75. I think that might even be a record high price for the 9.4 grade. Yes, it was. And then also the 9.6 also sold for $130, and that also is the record high price. So, definitely interesting here. I mean, I think a lot of people were suspecting that Ghost was going to be a member of the team, but, it's one of those things where, not a lot of people were talking about that character. There hasn't been, sort of a lead in to the fact that we were going to be getting her. And that's really what we're starting to see with the comic book market, where it's got to be these, really slept on books that nobody is talking about in order for us to set record high prices in this particular market. It's no longer that just because we're going to get Agatha House of Harkness and then we see the trailer for that, then that book all of a sudden is going to double overnight. But let's kind of finish it out here. Let's look at some of the other crazy sales that happened. Of course, we have Inhumans #5, a respectable amount of sales for this book right here. I think we have about, 10 or so. Definitely not setting the record highs for this prices, but, matching kind of the current fair market value that we're at for this book. Additionally, Captain America 354, quite a lot for this one. U.S. Agent, I think there were probably 20 raw copies that sold. Here's a 145 price for a 9.6 grade. Not anywhere near the record high price for this particular book, but definitely a strong sale, at least in this current market. And then this one here, Avengers #196, first appearance of Taskmaster. I think that this one is one that, a lot of people thought that this book was dead in the water, and it had been for quite some time, but I think this is probably going to start to change a little bit of direction. I realize a lot of people don't like that they did the gender bend version of this character, but that doesn't stop comic book collectors from FOMOing into this book, and there were quite a few sales for that one. It'll be hard for it to ever really match the record high price. I mean, you can see even at the 9.6 grade, the last sale that we got off of this announcement was $335, still a lot lower than where it was previously, but this particular announcement could act as sort of the stopgap from it following even further. And then we also had the Captain America #6, the Winter Soldier book. Not too many sales. I would say this is probably the least FOMO'd book as far as like sales, that came off of this announcement. We got 6 copies or so. Here's a $200 sale at the 9.6 grade. Not a tremendous amount. This is definitely a book that has been tanking quite a bit. Additionally, we had the announcement that Isaiah Bradley was going to be returning for Captain America. This definitely created a huge ripple in the market. Tons and tons of copies selling for this particular book. I think you're definitely going to see this one on lists like Cover Price and Key Collector and things like that. This is actually a book that was definitely dead in the water for quite some time. I mean, the corrected price from this thing is crazy. I mean, we were getting record highs for $600 at the height of the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Now last sale was $250, which again is starting to move the ship in the other direction. We had a handful of Captain America 117 sales. We had a decent amount of Captain America 25 sales as well, but not too many overall because again, I think everybody already knew that Captain America Sam Wilson was already going to be returning. So hard to set new record high prices for that, unlike the Isaiah Bradley one, which was a big surprise. Additionally, we got this character Sabra being introduced in Incredible Hulk #256. This is also another one of those books that is selling for insane prices right now. I mean, this was a $5 book before we got this particular announcement. Now you can see that there are sold prices for $70. So, when we talk about like the spec market and the FOMO market, this is definitely the instance to me, or the example to me, where it's like people still pay crazy amounts of money for these kinds of what I would call spec books, like characters like Sabra, because they're thinking that they're going to get in on the ground floor. You can see a 9.6 for this sold for $270. I'm sure that that is the record price for this book, but you can see, but probably the most sold copies, I think, of all the books that came out there in the market, because people weren't necessarily thinking about this character. And you can see right here, there was a 9.8 copy of this book that sold for $900. Absolutely insane that we got a price for that for the character of Sabra. I mean, maybe she's going to be the future of the MCU. Hard to say. Who am I to say? I mean, I have no idea. But, you can see that when there's characters that people are not thinking about, the characters like Frogman or Sabra or whatever the case is, there is still that FOMO. There are still those spec buys that are always going to be moving in the market, even with the current state of the MCU. If it's characters that are already known to be coming, like we all know, Riri Williams is going to get her own show. We all know that, Agatha Harkness is going to get her own show. I'm not so sure that those books are going to have the, doubling overnight effect like they used to in 2021, but it is these sleeper characters that are really blowing up overnight. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, it's a high risk, high reward situation if you want to spec on those characters that nobody is thinking about, but could be very, very fruitful in terms of the comic book speculation. Anyways, that's all for this video. Let me know what you guys think. What did you guys think about the news? What did you guys think about the announcements? Did you guys FOMO into any books? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you in the next video.